Hello and welcome back to another FPL captaincy video. Last week we once again absolutely smashed it with the Haaland captaincy against West Ham, where he essentially equalled what we got in game week 2 with the triple captaincy and picked up another 17 pointer. So yes, it's been a little bit boring, but at the end of the day he's the guy picking up the most points, so there's nothing really else that you can kind of argue with. So great last 2 weeks making up for the first week, which again isn't terrible. You know, obviously game week 1 with Isak was a 10 pointer, not the end of the world, but it was the fact that everyone else done so well. So happy to make up for that with game week 2 and 3. Let's head in to see who we're going for game week 4. So captaincy this week, we have 4 players as always, and we have 4 home fixtures as well. So once again we've got Salah and Haaland taking up 2 of these spots, and the other 2 spots this week were given to Eze and João Pedro, 2 other very popular players who also have really nice fixtures this week, so we might as well include them. Now again, like I said, 4 home fixtures this week, 4 very decent opponents as well. Salah obviously comes up against Nottingham Forest, Haaland against Brentford, Eze against Leicester, and then João Pedro against Ipswich. Now as far as predicted points go, again it kind of as it always goes with these kind of players. The other 2 aren't ever as high as Salah and Haaland, so you can see João Pedro isn't actually expected to do too well this week. I mean, still 5 points is at least a return, but again not to the likes of your Salahs and Haaland, of course, who are obviously on 8, 7 plus. So Pedro is down at the bottom, 4.1 for FPL team, which I actually think is the lowest we've had so far on the series, and then 5.5 for him on Fantasy Football Hub. Now Eze, a little bit higher, a bit more of a difference between the Hub and Fantasy Football FPL team. 7.2 points predicted for Eze, which does actually put him pretty high. He is up there with at least competing with the 2 big boys in Haaland and Salah. But obviously Haaland is actually taking the lead overall with the 8.7 on Fantasy Football Hub. But on FPL team he is predicted to score less than Salah is this week. So Salah is the leading one for FPL team this week, with Haaland leading the way on Fantasy Football Hub. So looking at the odds for this week then, Haaland is the one leading the way as always. I think the bookies' odds are always going to be very, very high for him to score. He has a 66% chance to score this week, which is very, very high, of course. Closely followed by Salah. Salah is still at over 50% to at least score 1 goal at 52%. Now a little bit lower you can see with João Pedro on 42%, who is expected, or at least more likely, to score than Eze is this week. You can see by both of them, with Pedro and Eze, both of them are very, very low in terms of the scoring 2 goals, with only 11% for Pedro and 7% for Eze. So when you're comparing this to the likes of Haaland and Salah, is a lot less. More so Haaland, who is sitting at 29% to score 2 goals. In terms of the clean sheet odds, Leicester are favourite of the 4 to keep a clean sheet this week against Palace, followed by Ipswich against Brighton, and then of course with Man City and Liverpool playing against Forest and Brentford, they are both very, very close with 6 and 7%. Now looking at the expected stats, in terms of expected minutes, again as it usually tends to be with these captaincy picks, they all are essentially 90-minute players. You can see Salah is the one expected to play 90 in full, Haaland at 89 as well as Eze, and then João Pedro in at 88. So no real differences with these guys. The extra 2 minutes isn't really going to make too much of a difference, so they are still expected to play 90 between them all. In terms of expected goals, Haaland is in there at 3.62, but he has massively outscored his XG. You can see he's actually scored 7 goals, as we know from his double hat-trick and his goal in game week 1, but an XG of 3.6, so he should have only scored by now at least 3 or 4 goals based on the shots that he has taken. So I would expect that at some point obviously to come down. You know, he's not going to score a hat-trick in every single match. Obviously he's got more difficult fixtures with Arsenal and Newcastle coming up, so maybe we'll be able to see that kind of catch up a little bit. Now looking at Mo Salah, he's another one who is massively outscoring his XG and his XA as well. Now he's the highest for the expected assists so far. The other 3 are actually very low considering the standards. Considering we've played 3 matches so far, they are very, very low on that. Salah is just over 1. In terms of XG, is just below 2 as well, and he has also outscored that with 3 goals and and 3 assists. So again, similar to Haaland, I wouldn't expect him to be able to keep this up over the long term, obviously. So when the more difficult fixtures come in, that's probably when you will see him drop off a little bit. Now, return chances this week, both of them again very, very high. Not as much as a difference as previously with the odds, because Haaland is sitting at a 77% chance of returning, which is still absolutely huge, followed by Salah's 72% chance. So again, there is a decent chance that you could go against Haaland here and Captain Salah, and it could work out, because again, as you can see with the odds previously in this return chance percentage, there isn't too much of a gap. There is definitely a gap, but obviously you're saving that 2.5 million going for Salah, and of course whenever Salah scores you do get that extra point that you get for goals when it's scored by a midfielder. Now, looking at Eze and Pedro together, obviously Pedro was more likely to score than Eze was in the previous graphic. This time round, Fantasy Football Hub predicts Eze to have more of a chance of returning than João Pedro does this week. Now, 50-50 for Pedro essentially, with that 50% chance. Probably a good one to own. Again, probably not really someone you're going to want to be captaining. The same with Eze. It's a little bit higher, as a 61% chance. In terms of captaining him though, probably wouldn't really look to do that. I think you obviously would be looking to go for one of the bigger hitters. So set pieces, as always, Haaland and Salah just on the penalties, followed this time by João Pedro, who is also on the penalties. Now, it does make him a very good option, I think, João Pedro. Just not as a captaincy, he's on the penalties, he's playing in that attacking role for Brighton against a very poor defence, which we're just about to look at against Ipswich. So again, a really nice option, could be a very, very nice differential, but in terms of actual stats, odds, percentage chances of returning, he's not going to live up to the Haalands and Salahs of the game. So still just the penalties for these guys. No one's been taking free kicks, no one's been taking corners. When you look at Eze, however, he is on all 3 of the set pieces, so that does give him an advantage over the others. However, as I said, with Pedro, he just doesn't really live up to the same odds and expected chances of returning this week. So the chances conceded then, how are the opponents defensively? Well, Salah's actually playing against a very solid Nottingham Forest defence. You can see they've only got an expected goals conceded of 2.6 so far this season, which puts them in 18th place, which is actually the best defence outside of Liverpool and Man City so far. So that's definitely something that you want to take into consideration if you're going to put the captaincy armband on Mo Salah. Now, they have only conceded 2 goals as well, so they are, again, like I said, very, very solid so far this season with only the 2 goals conceded. In terms of the chances created, however, they've only conceded 1 chance down the left hand side. Now, that's probably more detrimental to Luis Diaz. Obviously, you can see by Salah's side, they still have conceded 10 chances down the right. But when you're looking at the other players, you can see with Haaland, 22 chances down the middle for Brentford, and they're actually the 5th worst defence so far. So again, just looking at the chances conceded, looking at the defensive stats, Haaland easily looks like the better option here. 4 goals conceded for Brentford, so a little bit less than what they've been expected to concede so far. So it could be a week where Haaland makes that right. Obviously, when we're looking at Eze as well, Eze's playing against one of the better defences. Leicester haven't actually been too bad. They're sitting in 9th, so about mid-table in terms of the defensive positioning. Expected goals conceded at 4.5, and they've actually conceded 5. So again, kind of what you would expect from Leicester. In terms of chances conceded though, if Eze is going to be playing down the middle, 25 chances down the middle, which is very promising. Again, you could probably see someone like Mateta doing quite well this week, but again, like I said, in terms of expected goals conceded, Leicester have actually been a little bit decent. Moving on to João Pedro, as I said, playing against a poor Ipswich defence. They are actually the worst defence in the league so far, with 7 on the dot expected goals conceded, and they have conceded 7 as well. So bang on in terms of how not poorly they've been doing, but kind of poorly how they've been doing. In terms of chances conceded, again, 22 down the middle, which could be very beneficial for your Danny Welbecks, for João Pedro, if you maybe have both of them, if you wanted to go that route. But I definitely think it is a good week for the Brighton strikers, so could potentially be a good one for differential, for those who like to go for a differential captain. I definitely prefer João Pedro to Eze this week, just because of the quality of these defences, and obviously João Pedro does have have the higher scoring odds this week. But it probably comes as no surprise that Erling Haaland is the captaincy pick for this week. I would like to switch it up a little bit, but it's hard when the stats just favour him so much. So Erling Haaland is going to be the Game Week 4 captain of choice. Obviously has the highest scoring odds of the 4 picks this week. Again, should play the full 90. Still no backup striker for Man City. They never signed one, so that is going to be very nice for Haaland's minutes. High chance of scoring 2 goals. I believe it was a 29% chance, which is very high and a lot higher than some players to score even 1 goal. Opponents have the lowest clean sheet odds, as we would expect, playing against Man City away from home. Brentford with 22 chances conceded centrally, which obviously is huge, and again somewhere where Haaland could easily do really well in. Last week we were looking at West Ham. They conceded 14 chances centrally, and that was one of the best of the week, and obviously ended up scoring a hat-trick. So we're looking for the same again from Brentford. And then obviously we're going against Salah here, who is playing against what looks to be a very solid Nottingham Forest defence. So Haaland is the pick. Let me know down in the comments if you're also going to go for Haaland. Let me know if you're going to risk it on potentially a João Pedro, who also looks like he could do quite well. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe as well, and I'll see you all in the next one.